Yeah.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, February 24th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Chris Spags. We are brought to you by the Welcome Back promo. We will definitely touch on that in a bit. 7 games on DraftKings, 8 games on FanDuel. Let's kick off the work week the best way possible. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Spags, how was your weekend?
It's good. I'm excited to be here with you. I think I haven't done a show with you for a while. I think, but was it
It's
since
been a
your
minute.
birthday? Yeah, it's the
Probably.
All-Star break threw it off. Yeah, so happy
Yeah.
belated birthday to Josh. If you
Thank
haven't
you.
wished it yet, I'm doing it here on stream. But it's a fun slate. I feel like whenever you get crappy team value, I know Josh, you're maybe not as big a fan as I am. Josh before the show lamenting the amount of Kyle Filipowski he's getting, but these trashy slates are where I thrive. So the Jazz being about a 9-man rotation today with no good players left. Oh baby, we're eating good tonight.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a very interesting day for you because I assume that you've already just you've been in the lab cooking up different Davion Mitchell lineups now that he's just the starting point guard for the Heat. What a great experience for you.
No, you were really giving him the old tout treatment this morning on the strategy show, and I heard it, and I was like, man, this is Josh really exalting Davion Mitchell. I actually have him 3 fantasy points lower than Stokastic does. I have him getting like
Interesting.
0.5 fantasy points a minute a day. Yeah, he's just not doing anything. He doesn't do anything unless everybody's out. So like, I don't know, but he's playing 30 minutes, so I get it.
Now that the price has started to come up a little bit, it's bad. Trying to grab him when it was like 3,600 and he was playing 32 minutes was a worthwhile endeavor, I think. It's a little too high now.
Agree.
Um, let's break it all down. We got a bunch of games to talk about, lots of news left still to check out at some point in time. It's going to be a raucous live before lock with 4 games locking at 7 o'clock. I don't envy those guys at all.
Mm-mm. Never do. To be totally
No,
honest.
that's true. That's true. I'd much rather be you and I.
Yeah.
Let's start it off. Start it off. We're going right. The LA Clippers, 1.5 point dogs in Detroit, 221 total. Clippers are without Kawhi Leonard, who missed their most recent game, and they're without Norm Powell, who's missed the most recent 2 games, and they're without Ben Simmons for this one. So we're getting 25% ownership to James Harden, about 15 to Ivica Zubac, and then single digits to everybody else. Chris Dunn got to 10, but it's pretty light otherwise. James Harden is actually close to 50 on FanDuel, so keep that in mind. Seems a little high. What are you doing here with the Clips? Because you would think with those guys out, it might free something up, but most of these guys are pretty awful on a per minute basis. So I kind of think that the only 2 guys you really want to get to are Harden and Zubac.
I'm mostly on the same page with you there. I mean, the one thing that I think stood out from yesterday's rotation with them, where they did have, as Josh mentioned, Powell and Kawhi out, was like it was a pretty short rotation for the most part. They had Batum coming in off the bench for the second unit, and like some guys getting a few minutes, but it was largely concentrated around Harden, Zubac, Derek Jones, Chris Dunn, Coffee, and Bogdan Bogdanovic. And that was kind of the group they wanted to play. Second half, the game got out of hand. They went to some of the other scrub guys to see if somebody could do anything. But the fact that it's kind of a concentrated rotation, like I would think you maybe could take shots on Amir Coffee. You could take shots on Chris Dunn. The minutes projections for these guys to me feel a little bit light at 28 and 29 in Stokastic data right now. But like they don't become great plays. So I'm with you on that. Even Bogdan hasn't really topped 20% usage as a Clipper so far, and he's been under 20 the entire year going back to his Hawkston as well. So it is kind of Harden and Zubac by a pretty wide margin. I have to update all my data running a sim right now, but Harden I imagine will be in more than not of my lineups. Zubac as well. I was getting 3x a field before. I imagine that's going to come up too. I think that these are really good plays today. Good spot versus Detroit. A Detroit team too that kind of left it all on the field yesterday versus Atlanta, and it's a really tough game. Both teams putting up 150 in that game almost. Clippers had to pull guys early because they were getting smoked by the Pacers. So I think you're getting kind of a beneficial spot, and Harden smashed yesterday in 35 minutes, and if this game's competitive, I think he could play like 38, 39.
Yeah, I've got about 20% of Harden, about 15 of Zoo, and then I got a random 5% of Chris Dunn. I didn't really get any Amir Coffee. I didn't get any Bogdanovich or Jones, or, well, that's kind of where you draw the line. I don't think you go any deeper than that on the Clips right now. I thought I might get a little bit more Harden just isn't happening, which is fine. I'm miles over the field on Jokic right now, so I think I'm just soaking up my salary in a slightly different manner. And then I mean, it's not like I'm not getting Harden. I'm barely under the field at this point. I'm right around the field on Maxey, another 9K guy, right around the field on Trae Young, another 9K guy. So it seems like I'm just taking a stand on Jokic and calling it a day, which feels great because it's Nikola Jokic and he is projected in a completely different universe than anybody else today.
I have Harden closer to Jokic than I think you will, but let me see because I actually just updated the data. So I have Harden at 58 fantasy points today, counting for his rates, which have been sky high with guys like Powell, guys like Kawhi. Kevin Porter Jr. also took out for the sample size. He's actually put up 36% usage, 44% assist rate without those guys. About 1.42 fantasy points a minute. I'm at 1.6. Counting for the matchup, it was available today. So I think Harden gets as close to Jokic as there is on the slate, but obviously Jokic feels a lot safer, I think, in this situation and what Jokic is night to night.
I got it by 14.5.
Okay. I get it.
Jokic be good. Great matchup against Indy too.
Wait, so Harden's your number 2 guy on the slate then, right?
That's a good question. Let me see. Showed up 6th in contenders. Behind Oubre, Jokic, Keontae George, Trae Young, and Tyrese Maxey.
But in terms of total fantasy points, he would be number 2, right?
I have Shea ahead of him.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. And on the site, we have Shea at 53.7 and Harden at 48.8.
Look, I'm dying on Harden Hill, I guess. That's the way it's looking for me, but I can't ignore the rates, and the rates were 100% there last night in the way that I would expect them. So I am much more team Harden, but I'll see what my sim exposure is. Maybe it's going to keep me in control a little bit more than I feel like I will be in my head.
You heard it here, guys. Spags is dying on Hard on Hill.
Won't be the first time.
There is no ownership coming into Detroit. 8% right now. It's the lowest of any team on the slate. Tough defensive matchup. Pace down spot for the Pistons. I have 1 share of Asar Thompson and nothing else. Would I like a little bit of Cade? Sure. But I'm getting nothing here for the Pistons. What are you getting?
Yeah, I'm getting Jalen Duren at 3%, so a little bit under the field there. Nobody else above 1 besides Isaiah Stewart, who's at 1.2%. They just don't look that good here, and I really do think, again, I watched a little bit of that game yesterday with Detroit and Atlanta, and again, obviously you look at the results, you can look at the box score and get a read for how that went. That to me, it just feels kind of like a letdown spot here, and that's not a data thing, but like the total for Detroit's not great. Total for this game's not great. As Josh mentioned, that is a pace down. Clippers, we do know, play a tough defense, probably a little bit softer today from not having Kawhi out there, but Powell, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a net gain there. Some of the guys I'll have instead. I just don't love Detroit in the spot, but with how much Harden I'm playing, how much Zubac I'm playing, if I were to run it back with a Cade, it wouldn't be crazy, but like if I could afford Cade, I'd probably rather try to find the money to get to Jokic or something like that.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get a lot more Cade here, and then it's just gone. I don't have anybody reach double digits of optimal rate. I only got Cade and barely Jalen Duren north of 10% boom score for me, which is really, really low. This Pistons team is just not looking like the one today. Total's fine. Matchup's just not great. Well, look, when Zoo is in, it's tough sledding on the opposite side. He confirmed good defensively. Now, this is the game we want to talk about. Big time pace, big time total, 246. Fastest pace game on the slate. Denver Nuggets, 5-point favorites in Indy, 246 total. Denver, essentially at full strength, except for Peyton Watson. He's the only guy still out now. Never expected them to keep Zeke Naji in the rotation, but here we are. 20% ownership coming into Jokic, about 10 to Murray, 10 to Aaron Gordon. Nothing else really happening for the rest of the Nuggets. I've got 40 of Jokic right now. Wouldn't be surprised if that ends up a little bit higher, even further on today. And I'm happy about it. He's so far ahead of everybody else for me. We don't have any Giannis on this slate. There's no Wemby on this slate. So like the competition for him, Embiid is not a real thing anymore. Just give me all of the Jokic. I think he needs to hit his projection today. He's like 50-50 for me to be a guy that's in your winning lineup. I love him.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page with you. I'm getting him a lot more now. Just finished my sim and I'm actually importing everything right now. So I got him in 41% of my lineups, which feels pretty good to get 2x the field there. I think it's something though that you said in the strategy show was pretty sound and you didn't mention it here, but like it's easy to get to Jokic on the slate. And that's one of those times where it's like if it's really easy to get to him, 21% for the field that Stokastic has right now maybe feels a little bit light with how much people may want to get there with the money they have to go around. And that kind of makes me think if you see chalky ownership going to Jokic, maybe it's worth taking some shots at Murray. He's going to be a little bit less owned at about 8%. But the projection to me for Jokic, clearly the best guy on the slate, even though I might be overrating Harden by a little bit, I still have Jokic clearing him by about 10 fantasy points. So I think he's one of your best plays no matter what. If you can afford him, great. If you can get there, great. But just keep in mind that like Josh said this morning very presciently, everybody's going to be able to get there. So that's sort of your risk point. And two pay down centers or relative pay downs where you go to like a Zubac and a Vucevic. That was looking pretty good to me earlier today, and I was running some lineups. There are ways to not play Jokic here, so don't feel like you have to jam him in. But if you get him at 40%, you still get some other looks. I think that feels about right to me, and so I'm getting right now.
I'm intrigued a little bit by Michael Porter Jr. today, and he's not getting that much ownership. He's 6,200. He's small forward, power forward eligible. It's not like he even grades out all that well for me. Fantasy point per minute, plays like 30 to 32 minutes. But for some reason, his optimal rate and boom score are just showing up much better for me than I was expecting. I'm not getting him, but I kind of want to, like, when I rerun my stuff at 645, if it looks like this, I'm going to boost him. I just like this spot against Indy. I like the pace of this matchup, the total of this game. And if he's just going to get shots up, today just feels like a day where they might just drop. I'm not a believer in this Pacers defense.
Yeah, I think he projects well enough. And I think it comes down to the same thing I was talking about with Murray, where like any nugget you play, if you don't play Jokic, you're going to get some theoretical leverage there. Obviously, Jokic can do it in a bunch of different ways. He can put up only 20 points in this game and still, have a triple double and get some steals. He's one of the leading steals guys this year. But, for Jokic overall, like I think that he, to me, is just so highly owned that Porter Jr., I think, is viable pivot. I'm getting him at 5%. Murray, I'm only getting 1% of, but like his projection just looks terrible. But like if he puts up 40 real life points today, adds some fancy stats around that, that's probably one way Jokic doesn't hit enough of a ceiling to win you a tournament. So I'm with you on the concept of Porter. I think he, to me, and Aaron Gordon kind of look like the same play in terms of the expected ownership I have. But I think they're kind of valuable vessels on a slate where, like, Jokic will probably pick up a good amount of ownership.
Got to take a look at Odd Shopper in the portfolio EV tool. We missed it for the first game. Clippers, no bets out there that really stand out. Just a 1 Odd Shopper rating for Zoo and Coffee. On the Pistons side, and by the way, peep out the new Odd Shopper visual experience when you get there. Made some good old changes, looking great too. So shout out to the team behind the scenes. Lots on the Pistons side. Under 3.5 threes for Malik Beasley at plus 105 is out there with a 5 Odd Shopper rating on BetMGM. And then Dennis Schroeder under 8.5 points has a 3 Odd Shopper rating, 2.9% EV. That one's on DraftKings. So 2 solid plays out of the Detroit side. Do we get anything for the Nuggets as we catch up here to the current content? Oh boy, do we. 11 Odd Shopper rating on FanDuel right now for Aaron Gordon under 5.5 boards, minus 108. It's a hell of a line. It's minus 115 on DraftKings, and it's basically minus 120 or worse everywhere else. So FanDuel's giving you a pretty good line there. 11 Odd Shopper rating. I wouldn't want to sleep on that. 5.6% EV. And then a 7 Odd Shopper rating, under 4.5 assists on Russell Westbrook, plus 115 on BetMGM. Another just fantastic line. So great start here on the Nuggets side if you're looking to grab anything from the portfolio EV tool. Now we need to figure out what we're grabbing from the Pacers on the DFS side. These guys aren't getting any ownership. No one got to double digits except for Halliburton on FanDuel, and he hit 10 on the dot. Do you like anything for the Pacers? Because they're just sort of like healthy and uninteresting.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's how I feel about him most days because, like, at this point, they have a bunch of guys who give you, 20 to 25% usage, no real outliers there. Sometimes they'll spike in upside, but I don't know that I want to pay an 8K price tag for Halliburton to find out. Same thing for Siakam, who's not that far off. So to me, I'm getting 3% of Siakam, about half the field on him, getting 3% of Neesmith with the field on that. Really, nothing else here is coming up more than 2% for me. They're all plays that I could see getting to in a 150 set because they're not bad plays. But they're not priorities to me. I think the total looks okay. I think the game total looks okay, and matchup and all that. And it kind of seems logical, I think, if you're going to play Jokic to maybe consider a bring back one of these guys. But projection wise, like they're not must haves. And I think that's really their only use is like you use them as a bring back to make your Jokic, your Jokic ownership product a little bit lower.
Okay. Yeah, I got 5% of Halliburton, 4% of Siakam, and very little else. I thought I would have a little bit more balance here on the other side with Jokic and something, but it's not happening, and it's pretty annoying.
I'm always okay not getting Pacers. Like they're just one of those teams where like they'll hit sometimes, but I feel like the frequency of hitting and how they hit is like I don't know. I think people luck box when the Pacers hit personally, but that's me always having low in my projections, so I'm probably biased.
Yeah, I so very rarely get these guys. Keep your eyes out on TJ McConnell, who's questionable. If he's out, that should go ahead and not matter, really, is my guess. Maybe a little bit of a bump to Nemhard, but I'm guessing it doesn't become all that actionable. Do you think anything would happen here? I mean, when they're full strength, he doesn't really play much.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nemhard getting a slight boost and being closer to playable would be the thing. But at 5,100, like you're still kind of having to make a little bit of a jump there to get there. But I agree, like he'd be your bigger winner, but
Yeah,
doesn't matter that much.
extra minute for Halliburton or something.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. Hard to go too far any other direction. All right, guys, schedule for the rest of the day. Very easy. Live before lock is coming up next. So make sure you hit the like button now. Build that total up before we get to 6 o'clock. You're going to want to be here from 6 to 7 with 4 games locking at 7 o'clock. The news is going to be insane. You don't want to miss that stuff. And then Greg and I will be on playback, 7 p.m. live after lock, watching games, talking ownership, late swaps, everything that we can find, bets, portfolio EV. We're live for watching games. You can get a VIP pass and watch along with us if you don't have League Pass. If you do have League Pass, just link it up. You'll be able to watch along with us. So come join us, everybody. Game 3, Chicago, Philly. The Bulls are 4.5-point dogs in Philadelphia, 233 total. Getting a little bit of ownership coming into the Chicago side because they're a little thin today. No Ayo Dosunmu, no Jalen Smith, no Patrick Williams. So we're getting about 15% ownership to Vooch, Giddey, and Herter, and call it 5 to 10 on Kobe White and Lonzo Ball. What stands out most to you here for the Bulls?
The guy I'm getting the most of is Josh Giddey. He's averaged just shy of 1.4 fantasy points a minute out there. Court time without Dosunmu and without Zach LaVine. He's kind of your big winner overall, where Vucevic has been a much worse producer, averaging 1.1 fantasy points a minute without those guys compared to his usual 1.23. And I think Giddey is your guy you want the most here. He's going to be 16% owned. I'm getting him in 24% of my lineup. So not like a huge stand, but I do think he's the guy who kind of gains the most. Like Lonzo's rates have gone down a little bit, court time without those guys, which surprises me. But Vooch is going down. Like they go down without LaVine. They go down without Dosunmu, I presume, because like at least he distributes the ball. Giddey does on paper, but it's weird to see Vooch's rates go down for all these guys being out. So you want to take a shot at Vooch, I would get it, but I think Giddey, based on the rate data, is the one I want to go to. Kobe White at under 10% owned feels a little bit sneaky compared to the fairly chalky ownership going to Vooch and Giddey's way with those guys around 15%. But White, to me, I think looks okay. He doesn't really stand out in a meaningful way, getting him in 6% of my lineups. I think the Giddey stand is sort of my big one here. And, look, anytime you get a taste of a guy who's great off the court, great on the court, that's what we're getting with Josh Giddey today. So I think he's my guy on the Bulls.
20% Josh Giddey is my most exposed Chicago Bull, so I am joining you on Josh Giddey Island, not to be confused with Epstein Island, which is probably a similar island. They're neighboring islands.
The Giddey manifestos or manifests.
It's like the main island in Oahu.
It's incredible. It's like an amusement park with the height limit, except you have to be under the height to get.
Do you have any interest in Zach Collins as the backup?
I thought that was an interesting thought. He doesn't project for enough minutes here. Stokastic has him at 16 and change. I think that's a little bit tough to get to. I mean, like if he worked salary wise, I could see playing him. Jalen Smith does open up some opportunity there. He's been a pretty good per minute producer pretty much his entire career, but this year for the Bulls, he's been a guy, putting up one and change. If Collins fills in and absorbs some of that, he'd be okay. But I think there's better values to go to, and I only have Collins at about 16 fantasy points, so hard for me to love. But I could see the logic there, just because there's room to go around there. And if Vooch gets in foul trouble, like Collins could really spike.
I'm gonna end up getting to him today as like the weird pay down pivot random center. I think I don't know if I just have him over projected or what, but I'm gonna end up having like 10 to 15% of him. That's why I had to ask. He's a random dude. I get it.
Yeah, no, I mean it makes sense when you have the back of big man not there, like you can do it. But yeah, he's not as good of a producer as Jalen Smith anyway, so it's a little bit hard.
I wanted to get Kobe White. I talked him up this morning. I went through his rates today. I ended up projecting him higher than I had him earlier today. I got 2%.
Yeah. He's not a bad price tag either, but it's just I think there are better guys to go to who are a little bit higher value metrics. And like I had him at 34 and a half fantasy points, but I just didn't get there.
Yeah, I got 33 and a half, which was up from this morning, but ultimately it's Giddey and it's Kevin Huerter for me, which just is a hell of a scenario.
I'm low on Huerter. I don't see the love for Huerter quite as much. I'm getting 9%, so I'm still getting some, but that's enough for me.
And then we get to Philly. You ready to do this one? Because now we're in it. 148% ownership to Philly is actually the second most owned team right now, behind the Utah Jazz. Joel Embiid, shockingly, not in for this one. Who could have seen that coming? Ooh, Alex Sarr just got ruled out as well. So we'll get to that in a little bit on the next game. TJ McConnell also just got ruled out. So take a look at that one as well. So no Embiid. Not the only injury for the Philadelphia 76ers. Justin Edwards out, Eric Gordon out, Kyle Lowry out, Jared McCain obviously out. And then they just signed Alex Reese, who's not available. 20% ownership to Quentin Grimes, Paul George, and Gershon Yabusele. 30 more to a questionable Tyrese Maxey, and a crisp 50 for Kelly Oubre. I'd like to get Oubre out of the way right now. He's in 71% of my lineups. I think he's either the best or second best play of the day.
I would have Oubre and Grimes flipped. I think that Grimes is the better play to me, assuming that he's going to get, mid 30s minutes, like is in the projection right now. He's been a better producer on the year, 0.87 per minute compared to 0.82 for Oubre. And I think the rates for him on Philadelphia have been almost bizarre in how much better he's been with Embiid off the court. I think he's averaged 1.2 fantasy points a minute without Embiid out there. I don't think that holds. I actually didn't give him those rates today, but I would favor Grimes over Oubre. Like Oubre, if he's going to be 50% owned and Grimes is going to be half that. I currently have Grimes at 55 and Oubre at 25. So I think they're functionally very similar plays. Like, and I know this is one of the rules of thumb that Josh has beaten in my head enough times and shit my money previously as well. You want the guys to kind of close. So like, I think, putting a cap perhaps on Grimes, Oubre, and George, 2 out of the 3 there feels about right. But if Grimes does close and plays the minutes expected, I think he's your best Sixer besides, Maxey and the high upside there. George is weird. George's usage is not there when he beats off the court. He's not good at this point, and he's owned enough here that you're not getting value there. So I'll take Grimes at half the ownership compared to Oubre.
Yeah, I have 39% of Grimes right now. So
okay.
Yay. 71% of Oubre. Yay. Neutral to the field on Maxey. Yay. 2xing Yabusele. A little nervous. Little nervous there. I don't like it. The price tag's great. Positionality, at least you get the power forward, so I'm happy with it. But it feels like a little bit more than I really want. It's not like we haven't had a sample of Yabu having to play as the center without Embiid. It's been the whole season. It's not like it's new. But the price tag is probably on the low side for it, so I like it. The only guy that I am truly under the field on is Paul George. And honestly, I couldn't care less. Like, I just don't trust this dude at all right now. He's been absolute shit. I'm sure being light on him today will be the problem because the Bulls stink, but I would like to get a $7,100 Paul George in this scenario and make me feel good about it, but I don't. He just hasn't been that guy. The rest of these guys, I want them all, though. The Bulls stink.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm mostly on the same page with you with that. And I think the issue for me with Paul George, and honestly, maybe the field won't play him at 20%. And it's because like they all know Paul George stinks. And they've seen enough of the social media things about him not putting up, any respectable points total or shooting total in like the last 10, 15 games, something like that. At a certain point, it'll turn around. But like I could take that shot at Paul George if he's not going to be 20% owned. If he is going to be a legit 20% owned, I'm pretty cool just having 3%. So I'm with you conceptually. Like to me, Grimes, Oubre, Maxey, you want to get 25% plus of any of those guys. I'm okay with it. Even Yabu, you can go there. I'm getting less than him. But yeah, Paul George, it's just like I don't see the utility in going there if he's going to be borderline chalky and also going to be really bad. He's averaging only 1.01 fantasy points a minute on the year, which is kind of nuts. Like I get it with Embiid being in, but Embiid being out hasn't helped them enough either.
Yeah, you would think that when he's off, you would just see Paul George's rates like rocket ship to the moon, and I think he's just cooked.
Well, his usage actually goes down without Embiid. He goes to 22.9 from 23.7,
which
isn't everything, but yeah, it's crazy.
You would never expect that. Never expect that at all. Like if you just had to guess it, you'd be like, I don't know, 5-6 percentage points more. No.
Yeah.
No, it's just not happening. But yeah, Philly is incredibly popular. You're probably grabbing multiple cash game options here, and I have no problem with it at all. What do we do if Maxey's? Because we've got $4,400 Jarrett sitting out there, probably getting 80% ownership if he starts. Or is it Lonnie Walker day, or Ricky Council day, or David Roddy day? There's a ton of value on Philly if Maxey sits.
I would think it's Butler, and yeah, Butler, if he ever gets opportunity, I play him. I mean, honestly, even when he's like was on Washington and it's like, oh, he's going to get guaranteed backup duty, I play Butler there. He's been averaging 1.1 fantasy points per minute. True shooting for him is not fantastic at 55%, but more than good enough. He does a little bit of everything. He's honestly been a great fantasy producer his entire career. Just can't seem to find a spot to stick, and now he's kind of sticking in Philly. So yeah, if Maxey were out, I would have Butler, and I think. Realistically, if I had to choose no lineups or every lineup, I'd probably put him in every lineup.
David Eckenrode in chat just said, is it me or does Josh's mic keep breaking up? Is that happening to you?
So I thought it was my AirPods, but like a little bit of a weird kind of clippy sometimes.
Interesting. Give me 1 second.
Let's do a little dance in the meantime. Keep everybody. Okay, you're back.
Let's hope unplugging it and plugging it back in makes a difference. I had no idea.
That's what tech support would tell you to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Let me know if it keeps doing it. I'll screw around with some shit on the back end. All right. Game number 4. Brooklyn Nets, Washington Wizards. Let's hope this isn't the one we're watching today. Nets are 3.5-point favorites in Washington. That is what this game is. So Noah Clowney, not available. Owoman, not available. Melton, D'Angelo Russell, Cam Thomas, Dariq Whitehead. They're all out. 20% ownership to Cam Johnson, 20% ownership to Nick Claxton, just north of 10 on Trendon Watford, and then very little for everybody else here. How are you looking at these guys? Because I'm basically right around the field on Cam Johnson, right around the field on Claxton, but I don't exactly like either one of them. It just so happens they're playing Washington, so it looks a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm getting almost 2x the field of Cam Johnson, which I'm not sure if that'll hold as minutes move around and all of that. I have him well projected today. I have him for 37 fantasy points compared to Stokastic's 33.9. I'm in large part because I did give him a rate boost. Basically, without Russell, without Schroeder, without Ben Simmons, everybody who's been a point guard for this team, Cam Johnson gets to about 25% usage, and with him being a good enough shooter, that makes him pops for some lineups for me. So, yeah, I'll be with some amount over the field on Cam Johnson. I don't know if I'll be quite 2x. He's my favorite player here. I am actually under on Nick Claxton, getting 12% compared to the field's 20% and change. Under on Watford as well, getting 7 compared to 14 there. And frankly, if I'm going to have a stand, like I think Cam Johnson being the stand makes me feel better than Watford, even though Watford, like projection wise, is going to soak up a lot of the assists that are left. Like it's sort of how it'll look for how that should work. But yeah, I think Cam Johnson's your best play here. And I think he's, for me, like a core play right now in terms of what I'm doing.
Yeah, he's in 13% of my stuff. Certainly don't mind it. He looks good in a matchup against the Wizards as per usual. I'm basically just sitting in the teens for Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, and Trendon Watford, and then I just have random lineups with these other guys. Like there's no stands. It's just Brooklyn is like a full stop holding hands with the field team for me.
Yeah, the one thing that was weird that I'll just point out with Cam Johnson, he actually has a 25% assist rate without the guards out there. Sample size only 400 possessions, but yeah, 25% usage, 25% assist rate, 7% rebound rates flat, 1.1 fantasy points per minute. If he plays 32 minutes, that starts to make a little more sense, I think. So I see why I'm getting Cam Johnson, but you don't have to die on the hill with me. You don't have to die on hard on hill with me for Cam Johnson.
I'd like a little bit more. I mean, he's my most optimal guy. I have him at 13% optimal, 25% chance of 40 fantasy points. I'd like it. I'd like it. We also have a 7 odd shopper rating on Trendon Watford right now at BetMGM, under 21.5 PRA. Looking pretty good. You guys are going to be able to build out a hell of a betting card today. Wizards. So this looks a little bit different than when we started because Sarr got ruled out. So now we have no Alex Sarr. We had no ownership for Washington. This is as big of a pace down spot as you can get for the Wizards. Brooklyn's defense is actually decent, or maybe not decent, but like not bad like you would expect it to be. I think they're like 20th or something. But there was no ownership coming into Washington. How does Sarr change that for you? Do you think you're getting Rashawn Holmes or some other idiots for the Wizards?
So it looks like the minutes haven't been updated yet, so I can't say with my full throat how I feel about it. But I think Holmes will look vaguely appealing at 4,900. The tough part for me is like, Vucevic looks okay to me. Zubac looks okay to me. Like there's a few more that we'll talk about, I'm sure, as we go. Obviously, paying up for Jokic looks pretty good. That I'm not sure that Holmes will get there enough projection wise, but he's averaged about 0.95 fantasy points a minute on the year. Tristan Vukovic behind him is always a guy I'm kind of intrigued by. The minutes are definitely not stable for him with Holmes, becoming the starter with Sarr out. But if somehow Holmes were to get in foul trouble or if Vukovic were to be the starter, he's been averaging 1.25 fantasy points a minute on the year, and I love that guy. So I think taking shots at center here a little bit seems like a thing I'll be doing, but going nuts here, I just don't think is the move. When you have Middleton in, you have Smart in, I think the rates are sort of, and the total here looks awful too. Pace down spot, as I believe Josh mentioned. It doesn't look great overall, but Holmes and Vukovic, I think, are probably your best Wizards plays.
What can we realistically get out of Holmes?
30 and change.
I don't want to play him. I hate him. No matter what happens in these scenarios, I don't ever get this like backup center stepping into like the starter's role minutes. I never get this right. When I jam this guy, when you have these days where you don't expect to have him all day and then it happens and then you end up getting like 30-40% of somebody, I feel like I never land on the right side of that. But if you give him, let's just say 28 minutes, 0.9 fantasy points, that's 25. We're talking 5.1x. Like it's the same sort of value area as like Nick Claxton. He's going to be 15-20% owned. I don't know if I get much else, but I'm going to be getting Rashawn Holmes.
Yeah, and then you get Vukovic for the leverage on that now newly found Rashawn Holmes ownership, and maybe he puts up a lot of points. I mean, it's happened before where Holmes has been shocked that Vukovic has gone off behind him. I do think Holmes is like your binary play that should be the first option to go to, but if you have a chalky lineup, then it has Holmes in it. I would take some shots at Vukovic.
Who do you want to start? Like, do you think they do anything weird? Because if Tristan Vucevic starts at 3,900, it's even more interesting, right?
Oh yeah, I'd absolutely want him to start. He's great. Like the issue is like he would probably lose usage in that starting group. He's putting up about 25% usage on the year, 15% rebound rate, 17% assist rate. He can't hold that up in a starting group, but coming off the bench is where he might be effective enough that there's a shot of him closing if he does get hot. That even still, like there's been games I think where he got hot and didn't end up closing. But like he can produce a lot of points per minute. So yeah, if Vukovic were to start somehow, I think he would be an absolute smash play. Like he and Jared Butler would be two guys that I would put in immediately if they were somehow starting. But I do expect it to be Holmes starting, and then and you do what you do with that ownership and maybe carve out a little bit for old Tristan.
There we go. Do we have any interesting Wizards bets right now? I'm guessing we don't because of Sarr coming down. Yeah, only one odd shopper ratings out there. So nothing on the portfolio EV side for the Wizards, but if you're looking for some DFS stuff, I got a promo code for you. That promo code is welcome back. One big word, link in the description or the one in chat if you're looking for it. This is the way you want to do it. You can get in for $1, through the 28th of February, and then re-up at whatever the price is for whichever package you picked, whether it's a week or a month or the core or the full access to everything. But it's $1. $1 until the 28th. You can get in right now. If you wait until tomorrow, it's still just $1 and it's still just till the 28th. So why not do it right now? Get yourself projections and ownership and sims for tonight's slate. It's a great slate for it. So sign up using that promo code. Click the link in chat or in the description of this video.
Nikola Vucevic downgraded game time decision as well.
So no change whatsoever?
Well, I mean, a downgrade, midday downgrade to game time is not the best.
He's probable.
Yeah, he's probable, and now he's a game time decision. Q tag to game time decision would be lateral.
Probable is probable. There is no game time decision status. That's not a thing. That's just what coaches say.
Okay. I feel like if that comes out from the coach in the pregame stuff, I would watch out for it, is what I would say. Because then that would make Collins, like, that's a really important one if Vucevic were out.
It won't change anything for me. I mean, none of it matters. It's a 7 o'clock start. We're getting this one way or the other. So, like,
to be fair, I'm talking Nikola Vucevic, not Vukovic.
Oh, wait, yeah. Same exact situation.
Okay, I want to make sure we're talking about the same guy.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. It's a 7 o'clock start. Like, we'll get it one way or the other.
Yeah, you'll know. Okay, all right, yeah, I'm with you. But that matters a lot though, because like Collins would be the chalk of all chalk and would be absolutely worth it. So yeah, watch out for that.
Alrighty. Let's go to game number 5. Miami Heat. Your boy, Davion Mitchell, manning the helm. 1 point dogs in Atlanta, 231 total. 20% ownership coming into Tyler Hero, 10 to Bam, 10 to Andrew Wiggins. Miami is going to be without Nikola Jovic for a while. He broke his right hand. They've been doing some real weird stuff with their rotation right now. I'm throwing it to you wide open here for Miami. Like, who steps into Jovic's place? What are you doing with your boy Davion Mitchell? Which sounds like nothing at this point at 4,200. Do you like Hero? Do you like Bam? Do you like Wiggins?
I like Wiggins the most here. I'm actually getting 2x the field on Wiggins. Basically, expect him to have about a little bit of a rebound increase, a little bit of an assist increase with how he's been playing on the Heat so far. And really having Jovic out there, I think opens up some of the stats. It's at least what I ran the rates for Wiggins to see how it looked. I think he looks like a decent play here. Price tag, small forward, 6,500. I think all looks good to me. So you're getting him at 21% right now compared to the field's 11. That's my biggest stand. I was closer to the field in my previous run with Hero, but now getting 12%. The field's at 19. I have no issue going to Hero. Put up a lot of usage yesterday. Some of those spots, sometimes you kind of targeting another guy on the team might be more logical. Maybe going to Bam at less ownership. But I have no issue getting to Hero, really. Despite the game theory logic, I think in going to Bam or even a Kal Ware type, not really getting to those guys very much. But really, to me, Wiggins is the big stand here. Playing enough minutes, looks good. And I have to defend myself because Davion Mitchell just doesn't look that good to me. He actually looks like one of the worst plays on the slate. I have a 16.2 projection, and Stokastic has him at 20.6. So I have to, I think, relinquish my boy status for Davion. Unless every Heat player is out, then we're back on Davion Mitchell Island again.
So how is Davion Mitchell, when he plays with bullshit Raptors, amazing, but when he plays with bullshit Heat players, not amazing?
He played with only, so it was when Barrett, Barnes, and Quickly were out, which is like, yes, that's when, because like you joke, but like people out there don't grasp. It's like, yeah, it's like a totally fucking different situation when you have the entire run of the castle. Davion Mitchell's playing a lot of minutes right now, and I think Josh's point about him playing big minutes, like that's what you want for a guy. But he's just so awful. He's just out there. He's exerting all of his effort on defense, which I think is great for him getting court time, but not great for fantasy results.
I only have one share of him right now. I'd like him. I liked him prior to the price increase. When he was in those mid 3Ks, I think he was getting a little underrepresented. Now, I don't think you need that sort of value. Got about 20% of Hero. I'm right at the field with Hero and Wiggins, a little bit under on Bam. I don't have as much Miami as I thought I was going to. I just don't trust the rest of their rotation. Like, you could tell me that Kyle Anderson plays 28 minutes today, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. And you could tell me he doesn't play at all today, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know what these guys are going to do. So I'm going to stick to Hero, Bam, and Wiggins and call it a day for Miami. Do we have any interesting Miami Heat bets? Just a 2 odd shopper rating under 6.5 assists on Tyler Hero on Onyx odds. Then we get to the Atlanta Hawks. Bit Krejci, obviously. still out. Larry Nance, Jalen Johnson, Kobe Buffkin, Daquan Plowden. But we do have an available Trae Young. He is coming in about 15% owned. So is George Niang. And then Dyson Daniels, Okongwu, and Zachary Risache are all just under 10%. Do you have anybody jumping off the page for you here for Atlanta? Because I do not. Pace down spot against this double big Heat team. I don't like the spot. I'm getting a little bit of Okongwu right around the field on Niang and Trae Young, but no stands here for me.
I'm getting 3x the field on Dyson Daniels, and I think that's a bit of a rate increase for him in court time without Bogdanovich and Jalen Johnson. Some of their Hawks that aren't available or aren't on the team anymore. But 21% usage, about a 10% rebound rate, a 21% assist rate. He's been kind of the big winner of Hunter and Bogdan and all of them not being available or not on the team anymore. So I think he's the guy I'm most intrigued by with that price tag coming down. We know the steal upside, the block upside is there on any given day, and a high usage Heat wing team I think could be a Dyson Daniels spot. So I have him well projected at about 40 fantasy points, which is definitely a stand compared to the 35.2 Stokastic has. But I think when I talk myself into Hero's going to get a lot of shots up, and frankly, Dyson Daniels could be a real problem for him. I think I'm good with getting almost 20% Dyson Daniels right now. Low on Trae, up on Okongwu, and a little bit up on George Niang. Getting 20% George Niang right now has been producing at about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute pace on the Hawks so far. So gave him his rate increases he's had, and I think that makes him look a little more viable than I would have thought starting the day.
The Atlanta Hawks have a 10 odd shopper rating on Karis LeVert, under 1.5 threes, even money. Negative 1.9 historical ROI, though, on FanDuel. So your mileage may vary a little bit. 7 odd shopper rating under 15.5 points on Dyson Daniels at BetMGM. You're going to want to go ahead and grab that one. Really nice historical ROI there. And then another one for LeVert under 12.5 points on FanDuel. So on the FanDuel side, you can grab some unders if you're not a big Karis LeVert guy today.
People love betting unders.
People do not enjoy betting unders. But they should, because they're way better. Hit that like button, by the way. Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the OKC Thunder. The Timberwolves are 12-point underdogs in Oklahoma City, 228 total. There is very little ownership coming into Minnesota, which is honestly kind of wild because Dante DiVincenzo is out, Julius Randle is out, Rudy Gobert is out. We might lose Jalen Clark, who is questionable right now and feels like he's going to be out, but we'll see. 6% ownership to Ant, 2% to anybody else or lower. Are you going to get here? Because they are in a really, really bad spot. There's no ownership in this game, which is kind of crazy for Minnesota missing all these dudes.
Yeah, I don't think anything looks that good here. The total for Minnesota at 108 and change is just not giving me enough of these guys. And again, even if you give the little bit of a rate boost for not having, guys like DiVincenzo, Randall out there, nobody screams to me here. I think if you got Jalen Clark out, Terrence Shannon might be a borderline playable guy, averaging about 0.75 fantasy points a minute. I'd have him around 0.8 today. But really, even Naz Reid, I think people are going to point chase a little bit. In my chat before the show, people were like, Naz Reid, he went off versus the Thunder. He's going to do it again. And maybe he does, but these guys played pretty big minutes yesterday. Now you're facing a tough team and a 12-point spread. It just doesn't sound that good either. So, it's hard for me to like the Wolves here, but they hang in here, maybe a Reed gets there, maybe an Anthony Edwards gets there. Jan McDaniel's playing big minutes, he can get there, but projection wise, just not even close to me.
I got 2 shares of Ant, and that was it. 14 odd shopper rating on Ant under 3.5 threes at plus 120 on DraftKings. So that's the biggest bet we've had so far. 7.4% EV. Yeah, I got nothing here. If Jalen Clark is out, do we find value on the bench? Does Nickeil Alexander-Walker just play 38 minutes at that point? Do we play a $3,800 Terrence Shannon? Because that seems like the only path for Minnesota at this point.
Yeah, I think Alexander Walker's minutes will get a little bit higher, but I have him projected for 0.8 fantasy points per minute today. So if you give him even 35, he's not going to look like a great play. And I do think he would gain a little bit of minutes, but I would say Shannon in a projection probably would get a few more minutes as well. I think Shannon would be the one I'd be more intrigued by at 3,800 and, some better eligibility with shooting guard, small forward. Actually, no, they have the same shooting guard, small forward, but the price tag's much better for Shannon. So I could see taking that shot a little bit, but I agree, I think, with what you're hinting at there, that nobody becomes like a must-have play with Clark being out. And I do expect him to be out too with a neck injury. When he left the court, I would have thought he was going to play for like a week
Yeah, I
at
figured he
least.
was just going to be out just like straight away.
Yeah.
I didn't even expect the Q tag. Yeah, these guys are just they're so thin right now. I don't know what we can do. And then there's no ownership on the Oklahoma City side either because they're just expected to beat the shit out of Minnesota. Like, unless Ant is going crazy, they have no way to create any offense. OKC's defense is exceptional. Doesn't even matter that Chet is out for rest because their defense is still the best defense in the league. Killian Hayes will remain in the starting lineup. 4% ownership to SGA, 4% ownership to Jalen Williams is it. I got 8 of Shea, 1 of Jalen Williams, and 1 of Isaiah Hartenstein. I don't really want the Thunder either.
Yeah. I think same page as you. I'm getting a little more Hartenstein, I think, than you are. I'm getting 5%, slightly above the field on them. Getting only 1% in change of Jalen Williams, 1% in change of SGA. I do think SGA is like, one of those pay up options you can go to try to get leverage on a Jokic. I think he makes some strategic sense, if not, looking like a great projection play. But yeah, Minnesota, a tough defense on paper, even though this team is obviously not the same Minnesota you'd get normally. A little bit better than average with a 111 defensive efficiency rating. Pace down spot as well for the Thunder. So, look, Thunder guys can hit on any given night. It just feels like one of those days where the production's chopped up enough. And like Hartenstein, you can take a shot on just consolidating some work with Chet not in there.
Yeah, and like with no Gobert out there, I don't think they're going to mind at all playing Jalen Williams or Kenrich Williams at the 5 as well for the Thunder. They're just not going to care too much. Under 11.5 rebounds for Isaiah Hartenstein, 2 odd shopper rating on Fanatics. That's the best mark we have for the Thunder. We've got 2 games left to go on this slate, only one of them on the DraftKings slate. We've been talking portfolio EV for each one of these teams. You guys can still get the portfolio EV tool for a week. If you've never had it, for free. There is a link in the description of this video. You can get a 1-week trial if you're interested. We were just running 75% off. That ended yesterday. But if you're new to it all, if you're looking to do some sports betting or any work on the pick'em sites, this is the way to do it. Take a market-based approach to beating these books. Use our tools. Sign up for the free trial. The link is in the description. Final game of the night. It's a doozy. Of the DraftKings night, I might add. Portland Trailblazers, Utah Jazz. Blazers, 6.5-point favorites in Utah, 231 total. No DeAndre Ayton, no Robert Williams. 10% ownership to Tumani Kamara. About 15 to Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons. And then about 25 to Denny Avdia. How are you handling the Portland side? Because they are facing a complete made-up basketball team for Utah. None of these dudes are real basketball players. They are next-level bad. So Portland's in a good spot. They've been hot lately. Who do you like the most?
I'm getting the most of Avdia, but I'm actually under the field on everybody on Portland side, which doesn't feel great. You see 119 implied points over the weekend. We saw Portland put an absolute beating on Charlotte, get a lot of production in that game. The issue is I just don't have these guys taking a big enough leap up without DeAndre Ayton out there. And Robert Williams. Like, they're missing 2 centers playing meaningful minutes, but nobody really stands out that much to me. I think they all look like they're in a playable range. Jeremy Grant looked like he was going to be super chalk this morning. That's kind of stabilized. But really, I think you have enough guys that kind of do similar usage, similar assist upside things, enough guys that contribute in multiple categories that nobody stands out for me. It's a little bit scary because I think, as Josh mentioned, this matchup is a really good one on paper. It should be, I think, somebody standing out here, but like, I don't think Avdia is as great of a play. Like 25% ownership feels like a lot for him, and I'm getting 15. That feels like more than enough.
Avdia's the guy I have the most of at 19%. I got 17 of Simons, 15 of Grant, 7 of Kamara. I didn't take a stand. The piece that I'm interested in is, what should we be doing with Donovan Clingan in this matchup? Does he just dominate? Does he play enough? Should he be way more than 5% owned? Not owned at all? Like, is Donovan Clingan nervous at all about matching up with Micah Potter, Kyle Filipowski, Kenyon Martin? Like, I feel like I should have a ton of Clingan, and he probably grades out as like the 90th best play for me. What are you doing here with Clingan?
I think that's sort of the struggle point. I think that to your point about Rashawn Holmes earlier, like there's just, I think, better, higher ceiling projection plays, like centers that look a little bit better. But like, yeah, if you think about the stuff, and I think that's sort of a tough exercise sometimes at DFS where you're so focused on projections and all that. Like Klingon to me projects a 5.2x value. I'm at 28.6 fantasy points. But because like he's only getting about 24 minutes in the stochastic minutes projection, like it just doesn't matter. Like he just doesn't get enough of an opportunity in terms of the ceiling and all of that.
Yeah.
But I agree that like he should have a double double in like 10 minutes in this game because Utah's going to suck, going to miss a lot of shots, and there's no legit centers going against him. So yeah, like I'm with you on that. It just comes down to like how much are you going to personally manage your, your portfolio, the lineups you're putting in? Because like I think Klingon is a good like play functionally for how you'd view basketball and a
Yeah.
matchup and all that. But projection wise, he's just not there because he doesn't play enough minutes.
Now, like, how do we get the 31 minutes he played on the 12th against Denver? Because that's what we're looking for in this sort of scenario. Every other day, including all of these starts, 18, 20, 17, 20. Like, I don't know what else to do. It feels like projecting him for 24 minutes even feels wrong. And that's like, I think you have to do it. But I don't know. I just wanted to bring him up because it feels odd.
Yeah, it's one of those spots that definitely is a good matchup spot, and I think if you're hand building, you'd consider it more. But if you're putting in a 150 set, like I got him in two lineups, and that's with me having a pretty decent projection on him. So yeah, I think it's a good call out.
All righty. Now we get to Utah. You ready for this?
It's a lot here.
It is a lot. Jordan Clarkson out, John Collins out, Walker Kessler out, Laurie Markkinen out, Colin Sexton out, which is like kind of their starting five. So, uh, 50% ownership to Kyle Filipowski, 35 to Bryce Sensabaugh, 20 to Cody Williams, or sorry, 20 to Svi Mikhailuk, 20 to Keontae George, 15 Isaiah Collier, 10 Kenyon Martin Jr. Who do you like the most? Obviously, starting lineup's going to matter, but I'm just going to try to jam a lot of these guys and then figure it out when I have to swap. But what do you like the most?
In terms of my total exposure, I'm getting the most Kyle Filipowski right now, getting 65% of him. The field's at 48. Filipowski, I would have it about 1.04 fantasy points a minute today. He has been the guy you'd expect to start here as he's been playing the backup center minutes, has historically picked the center start when you've had the guys who are out today, basically everybody, as Josh mentioned. So I think he should be safe no matter what. The guy that I have the biggest stand on, though, is Svi Mikhailuk. I'm getting almost 3x the field on Svi Mikhailuk. He's actually averaged 1.3 fantasy points a minute with all the guys who are unavailable today off the court and been rebounding at a weird like rate as well. I actually didn't give him the rate boost for that, kept his rates flat. But basically, when Markkinen is out, he just becomes kind of the 3-point gunner, and he does contribute more as an assist man, as a rebounder than Svi Mikhailuk ever has in his career, at least in this limited sample size in the Jazz. So I think he's your best play. But those are my top two. I'm still getting over 50 on Sensabaugh as well, getting 40% on Keontae George. Low on Collier, which does make you feel exposed because he does have the huge assist upside. But this is the most important team on the slate. And two, like having a ton of them, you have the most late swap flexibility as well. So I don't think you can go wrong with Jazz guys tonight, even though you obviously can go very wrong.
I have a lot of these guys. 219%, in fact, 60 something percent more than the field. Over on Keontae George, 2xing Isaiah Collier, 2xing ish Kyle Filipowski, over on Sensabaugh, over on Svi Mikhailuk, a little bit under on Kenyon Martin Jr. I am pretty intrigued by Micah Potter today at 3,400, but he's so bad on a per minute basis that I don't think it's going to matter at all. He's like a 0.75 guy, but he's really like the only like bulky dude that can go up against Donovan Klingon if he's out there, other than Filipowski, obviously. But yeah, I just want a lot of this. I'd like to have a little bit more of Portland too, and hope that we just get some news and lineups early enough. But you got to be ready to swap to whatever this Utah starting lineup is going to be. And I'm just going to hope that I have enough that I can move it around no matter what happens. It's kind of why I like getting to someone like Sensabaugh, because everybody else on the bench is cheaper than him. Svi Mikhailuk's 4K, Cody Williams 3,500, Micah Potter 34, Juzang's 4K, Jaden Springer's flat 3K. So everybody, Keontae George, Collier, Filipowski, Martin, Sensabaugh, they're the five most expensive guys. So I would like to congregate on them as much as possible, just in case they do some weird stuff with the starting lineup.
Yeah, Juzang in particular, if he were to pick up a start, 1% projected ownership right now, nobody's going to be there. And like you mentioned, I thought that was a great point in the strategy show, like swapping off of your Sensabaugh to whatever, the starters. Sensabaugh's probably going to start no matter what, but like, the other starters there, KJ Martin starts, I think, no matter what. But like Svi could not start, Juzang could start. And if he did, you'd probably want to play Juzang.
Anything else here for the Jazz right now?
No, I mean, I think this is just a game to have a lot of ownership for on DraftKings and then have the flexibility to swap around and like really be mindful of paying attention when you get that starting lineup to immediately try to kind of hem things out a little bit. But this will be my most exposed game, and I think you have to take the shots, and I think it's worth it for a lot of these guys.
Final game of the night, only on the FanDuel slate. Charlotte Hornets, 11-point dogs in Sacramento, 233 total. 230 likes. I think we can get up to 300 if you hit that thumbs up. There's not a ton here to talk about. Charlotte is healthy-ish for today. No Mark Williams, but they do have LaMelo Ball. He is 8% owned on FanDuel. Miles Bridges is 5. No one else is higher than 1. Kind of have a little bit of interest in $4,800 Musa Diabate at no ownership, but it is FanDuel. It is one center, so it becomes a little difficult, especially with Jokic. What do you like here for Charlotte?
I'm always down to take a tournament shot on Miles Bridges just because he does become basically a different player with Brandon Miller off the court. Obviously, having LaMelo there just kind of damp things down a little bit compared to some of the upside he's shown with like legit 70 fantasy point upside lately. But I could take shots at him at any spot. In particular, like I think if they're competitive against Sacramento, Bridges might have a shot in outlier day, but that's now more than priced in. Really, that's it for me. Diabate I could see with the price tags as well being okay, but like you said, FanDuel. You don't want to give up your center spot for a Diabate. So I think I'd play Bridges and Balls tournament options, but they're not great options by any stretch.
I had LaMelo come out of my contenders at 16% optimal, 32% boom. So kind of a little underowned if you want to pay up to be a little contrarian for him. I mean, it's not like there's defense on the Sacramento side. So like the spot works, but minutes could be a little tricky for LaMelo today. And then on the Sacramento side, it's kind of like the exact opposite of the Hornets. The starting five is just going to play 36 minutes and look awesome against this shitty Charlotte team. But I don't know how you pick one over the other. Do you think that any individual Sacramento Kings look better than some of their starters that they're playing next to? Because I can't separate them.
No, I don't. Nobody really stands out to me. Like Sabonis, I think another guy is a tournament option. I feel like when on these slates like this, where maybe gets slept on a little bit, and certainly going against Charlotte, he can put up the outlier day, maybe get a few more blocks to increase the upside, and certainly rip an ungodly amount of rebounds. I mean, I'm projected for 13 plus rebounds already, so that could certainly go up if the Hornets start breaking everything. But yeah, like really nothing that great. I think the total for Sacramento does look pretty good, but everybody's healthy. They're all kind of priced appropriately, even for FanDuel. So yeah, nothing stands out.
Under 19.5 points, rebounds, and assists for Yusuf Nurkic is a 10 odd shopper rating on BetMGM right now. That's another monster. I've had a couple double-digit odd shopper ratings so far today. Like you build like a small parlay out of that too in these positive EV plays. Just give yourself a little bit more fun, something to catch if you want to. Nothing interesting out there on the Kings. So we've reached the end of the line. Spags, you know the drill. Tell the people where to find you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Spags and check out my NBA channel at Splash Play NBA every day before the stream. I hop on there, run through my projections, compare them to stochastics, run through some of the best bets and all of that. So try to do a version of things here every day, and please check it out if you can. And good luck, guys. Should be a fun slate. Go Utah Jazz. We love them.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for being here. You don't have to go anywhere. Deeper Dive is done live before lock on the exact same stream coming up next. Greg, Eric, here they come.
I don't allow it.
Well, just leave it on a one shot of Greg for like 10
No,
minutes.
no.
Sounds great.
No. Leave the camera on Jordan.
He's like, oh, I got a surprise poopy coming down here.
Leave the camera on Jordan.
Oh, Jordan.
Mm-hmm. What is happening, everyone? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock on this fine Monday here where, listen, we got a slate going on here. We got players getting ruled out left and right. We're coming down the tail stretch of the season, Eric. There's only a month and a half left in the NBA regular season. Joel Embiid, I'll tell you my suspicion. I don't think he plays another game this year.
I don't either.
But with the Philadelphia set, it was very bizarre to me that they even took as long as they did to rule him out today. And then you got Tyrese Maxey is questionable to play. So that could be massive for today, a possibility of no Tyrese Maxey in addition to Joel Embiid. What the hell do we do with what appears to be a very washed version of Paul George, who was an all-NBA caliber player just a year ago, and now just like a league average player, generally been trash. I don't think I can remember a player who's gone downhill this quickly, and we're going to have some discussions about him if Tyrese Maxey gets ruled out. So do us a favor here, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to check out the tools at Stokastic, now is the time. We're coming into the tail stretch of the season, second half of the year. And if you guys are looking to try out our NBA package, you could choose any package of your choosing, get access for $1 for the remainder of the week. So pretty good deal right there. Just $1, get access to any package of your choosing for NBA for the remainder of the week and try out our tools. Player projections, ownership projections, our sims, it could all be in your hands for just $1 this week. Link is down below in the YouTube description box. The promo code is welcome back. Eric, I'm also welcoming myself back. We haven't done a show together for a few days here. What's up, man?
Feels like forever, actually. Yeah, I don't even think we've done a show since I've been in Arizona. But yeah, it's good to be kicking it with you. Obviously, 7 games on the main slate here for today. I think, kind of saving us from ourselves and our Yusuf Nurkic obsession that we've had every time he's been on a main slate. I know that you and I have liked him too much on some of these slates for a guy with no 20-minute upside, but happy that will just be a bet today for me. Diving into this NBA slate, I'm pretty excited about this one. I'm coming off some good juju from Brian Berryman putting out some fire golf projections this week, so ready to rock.
You know what's fun? Actually, I do have a Nurkic bet today too. It's a bet I placed today. It's one of the ones in my third. I did bet Nurkic over 6.5 rebounds. Yep. So we'll see. That was one of the best.
It's at 8.5 now. Did you see that?
Oh, I did not. So I feel pretty good about that. I got that was
you should.
It was one of the first handful of bets that I placed in my thread today from Portfolio V, over 6.5 rebounds for Yusuf Nurkic. So happy. Looks like you got some good closing line value there, because I'll tell you, Eric, I have had nothing but chaos going on in my life in every single direction possible as of late.
I know,
but the one thing that, believe it or not, has somehow remained constant has been I've done well betting and playing DFS as of late. The thing that should have the most amount of variance in my life has been like the one constant, the one stable, as everything else. Windows just break in my house, doors fall off. I've got my body just collapsing, wants nothing to do with me. It is not cooperating, but betting, that has been one thing that's gone pretty well for me.
Yeah. You can take that money with you to the grave. So that's the good news.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it'll go right in the ground with me. It'll pay for the funeral.
Oh, we're going to have such a bomb time. Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
God, that's bleak. Let's never talk about that again.
You're going to be.
When I'm 95, we can do it. When I'm 95,
playing the Kendrick Lamar song, you'll be dancing on my grave. Guy in the black suit.
Yeah,
we'll
be talking about Kenyon Martin the 15th playing in the NBA. That'll be great.
I got to ask you as we go here, what is your take on? Because the only key player who's questionable as of right now, we've already got a bunch of guys who've been ruled out. The only key player that's questionable right now, it's Tyrese Maxey, and he matters a whole ton for this slate. His points prop 31.5 the last I looked. No Joel Embiid. We talked about all that. Are you right now assuming, and we're going to get this news before the slate starts because he's in the first locking game of the slate here, are you under the assumption that he's going to be playing tonight?
Yeah, because the line's gone up 2.5 points from where it was yesterday, and it would be asinine to me if that just happened, knowing that Joel Embiid was going to be out, and then knowing that Tyrese Maxey was going to be out. It would be very strange to me to have him out. It's the only reason that I haven't single game parlayed all of his overs, like the Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre, Paul George, Yabusele. Those are really the only props we have available to us. I don't even know who that fifth starter would be. Are they going to go to point Paul George or Quentin Grimes or Kelly Oubre here? I think you're more than likely getting Jared Butler as a free square. That's what they did last time. But obviously, he's just the most important piece of news on the slate, and really the only piece of news we have on this slate now.
And I agree with you. If Tyrese Maxey doesn't play, I feel pretty good about Jared Butler starting. By the way,
he's going to play, though.
It doesn't even matter. We just got word Tyrese Maxey in today. So there we go. All goes. I was just about to say, I was going to make a case for why I was confident Jared Butler was going to start if Max out. Doesn't matter. We got Tyrese Maxey in. So let's talk about this. Philadelphia 76ers. No Joel Embiid today. He's been in and out of the lineup pretty frequently this year, but it's a great matchup against the Bulls. The team is, at least as far as the role players go, fairly priced down. Yabusele probably going to be starting at center. He's relatively cheap today. Now that we know that Maxey is in, we know Joel Embiid's out. What are the priorities from the Philadelphia 76ers?
Yeah, Tyrese Maxey, right off the bat, 1.26 DraftKings points per minute player, almost a 1,400 minute sample size that we've had this season with him. He's just been dynamic. I think the disgusting number two for me, I mean, other than Quentin Grimes, who's been a 1.11 DraftKings points per minute guy, and Kelly Oubre, who I just think plays enough minutes, has that rebounding rate spike. Paul George, we got to talk about it. I mean, he has been so bad, so unbelievably bad. And like, if I were to artificially just nerf somebody down because I just didn't want to play him on any given slate, it'd be Paul George. But he is 7,100 coming off of 40 minutes 2 days ago against Brooklyn. I got to think that you have to put some Paul George in the portfolio, but he is by far the one that I am the least excited about, Greg.
Here's what I'm going to do with Paul George, because I don't know what the hell to make of his season. This is the most crazy downfall that I can remember seeing from a player. I know that people have liked to make fun of Paul George for a meaningful amount of time now, but at the same time, this is a guy who he had some struggles in the postseason and high leverage spots, oftentimes when there's a lot of eyeballs on him. But this has clearly been a guy who was an all-star caliber player in the past. He was an all-NBA player. We saw him, third in the MVP voting like 6 years ago or something like that. So he's had really high highs, and he is just completely fallen apart this season. And I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if he's been injured this year. I don't know. There's just so many things that could potentially be going into what's going on with Paul George. This is one of these guys who you and I have had these conversations about a bunch of players over the course of the years. Whatever the field is doing with Paul George, that's where I'm going to align myself with. I don't have a strong enough opinion. It seems like he's going to be around 20% on. Cool. I'll just play 20% of Paul George. I don't have a strong take whether he's going to be good or bad going forward. I don't know what's going on. I'll make my lineups different elsewhere.
I think that's probably the right way to go about it. I mean, if we want to talk about the difference of Joel Embiid between playoffs and this, I mean, this is kind of irrelevant to the slate, but I think it just comes down to the physicality of the playoffs and the fact that he averages more regular season free throws than he does playoff free throws, which is so opposite of everyone else because you should average more free throws per game in the playoffs because your minutes go up. So it's very strange. Part of that could also be officiating. They do let them play maybe a little bit more come playoff time, but that's neither here nor there. I'm with you. I think Paul George, more than likely, it's just, all right, where's the field going to land? He's the most uncomfortable click of everybody. He's not really all that popular as it stands right now as a result, but I go to the Sims tool and I plug in, his fantasy point per minute rate, and he just looks so damn good. Kelly Oubre is going to be the most popular with shooting guard small forward at 5,500. I'm fine with that. I can get to infinity and I'm fine with it. Tyrese Maxey, I think he becomes the best spend up not named James Harden on this slate. I still prefer Harden by a little bit just because of the raw fantasy points that we're getting. But Paul George is the guy that I think you just click 20-25% of him and move on.
Yeah, like I said, just going to be aligning myself with the field. I do have a run of lineups here, which is taking all the 76ers news. Not that I have to change anything because we already had Tyrese Maxey in our projections and everything and in our ownership, and he was rolled in. So in terms of what my player pool is looking like for Philadelphia 76ers, guys, Kelly Oubre, like you said, he's going to be a massive piece. I can't get away from chalky Kelly Oubre. First run of lineups I did here, he is currently player who's making up more than half of my lineups. He's also projected for around 50% ownership. I'm still a little bit overweight to the field on him. A lesser owned player who I'm kind of surprised isn't pulling all the much ownership that I'm well overweight to the field to, Yabusele. He's the player I have the second most exposure to from Philly. I just assumed when Embiid was ruled out, we would all assume, hey, he's going to start. Vooch is a poor defensive center. Every game with the Bulls has a 1 billion point total. But Yabusele is only projected for 20% ownership. So my first run here, I got about 2x the field on Yabusele. So relative to ownership, he's my favorite guy to be rostering from Philly.
There's a reason I didn't say his name, but now I just, whatever. That bit is dead. That bit is dead. Great. New nuke of the night incoming. That's fun.
I mean, what are we gonna do? We have to avoid talking about players when news comes up, so you could see the whole story in your back pocket for later.
I purposely didn't say his name during any portion of that, and then you're just like, yeah, Yabusele's the guy of the second most of. I'm like, well, fuck, Greg, come on, bud. But it's all right. I totally understand. Yabusele is my favorite play on the entire slate. I'm with you.
Yeah, right now he's the player I'm most overweight to, assuming that this 20% ownership holds. Now, if we get an ownership update and he's like 40% owned, really changes the equation. As of right now, he's a guy, and I don't think that's going to be the case. At least I'm assuming that's not going to be the case because, you know, nobody additionally got ruled out since the last ownership update. If anything, you would think maybe it even goes down because Tyrese Maxey was questionable and was ruled in. And so I'm looking at Yabusele relative to his ownership. Really strong option. Love the position eligibility on him. Tyrese Maxey is a pay-up option. Also looks really strong to me. If I'm choosing between trying to get usage out of Tyrese Maxey or Paul George today, I prefer getting to Tyrese Maxey. One other piece of the equation for the Philadelphia 76ers, and then we'll move on to other topics on this slate. We'll read you guys' questions, super chats, and all of that. Who are the cash game options that we think you absolutely have to play from Philly?
Yeah, you're absolutely playing. I mean, the first guy you're clicking in any cash game lineup is Kelly Oubre. I think you're 100% playing Tyrese Maxey in cash because you should be able to play Maxey and Harden, no problem. That would be the looking at my top project, that would be exactly where I would go. I love Yabusele so much that I think I would play him in cash too. 4,900. He's so cheap. He's going to be starting, and they don't want to play Drummond all that much behind him. He can play alongside Drummond if need be. Like, there's just so many ways that Yabusele succeeds against a Chicago team on the other side. It just doesn't make sense that he wouldn't be more popular than where he's at right now. But 4,900, I know that he's only 20% owned. I still think I would just say, like, I know better, like the I know better play, and I would just play Yabusele in cash too. Those are the three.
I think I see it the exact same way as you. Like, I wouldn't consider Yabusele a must play in cash at what his ownership is, but just based on how he's projected, how often he's showing up in my GPP lineups, like I think he looks so good that I would be inclined to play him. I would be not going to call him a must play, but I'd say a very strong preferred option for me if I was going to be playing a cash game for today. And then one other thing too that I want to touch on here. Who are the other guys? Because I already know. I don't even have to open up Discord. I know this is already going to be a question sitting here for us. Is who do we have to be playing in cash games today? Now that we've got no other key players are questionable at this point. Maybe we'll get some weird starting lineups, but there is not a single player on today's slate that's currently listed as questionable that's going to matter. So considering that we have all of the news, barring anything, bizarre happening, which could always happen in the next 44 minutes, outside of the Philly guys we just touched on, who are the other must rosters in cash?
Kyle Filipowski, Bryce Sensabaugh, Keontae George, some combination of values. So whether that's Quentin Grimes or Svi Mikhailuk, you might want to backload it a little bit. Like I think it's pretty known what the starting lineup's going to be. I mean, we have an example on the 13th, right before the All-Star break, of all of these same characters being out. Kyle Filipowski is your Hulk slam. Like, he played 37 minutes against the Clippers and Zubats. He gets another true center in Klingon. You'll get some smaller lineups there that he should be able to stay out on the court. Not a ton of like offense in that front court as is. Like, Kyle Filipowski is such a Hulk slam today at 4,600. He didn't even do all that much. He ended up fouling out of that game. 20 and 10. Didn't even shoot it a ton. 12 shot attempts in 37 minutes. You prorate that, he should be attempting around 14 and a half shot attempts based on the fact that, he comes off the bench with the usage. But, it's just Isaiah Collier who's the normal starter that's going to be out there. I think some combination of him, Sensabaugh, Svi Mikhailuk, you're just playing them in cash as well.
Could you do me a favor, Jordan? Could you play the exotic player of the night animation?
Oh my God.
This is very important. It's very
back from peeing. Did you piss your pants? If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis. Oh my God. TJ McConnell's out. Can't play him. Payne Pritchard's not on the slate. Can't play him. Domantas Sabonis not on the main slate. Can't play him. Grayson Allen down on the slate, can't play him. Ty Jerome can't play him. Reed Shepard can't play him. Luka not on the slate, can't play him. I'm just going to keep throwing it out there over and over and over again. Literally no exotics from the entire video.
Exotic play of the night from Joe Eric Exotic himself. And we're at the part of the season, Eric, where the exotics become quite popular. They become quite important on these slates because you know what happens? It's time for the backups to get involved now that teams are tanking.
Yeah,
which
like
means
all the backup white guys.
Yeah,
it's great.
We've got some ones to choose from. I don't know how you get away from Kyle Filipkowski. And we got a question in Discord from Coach DFS. And I know you just mentioned Kyle Filipkowski as a must play in cash games.
Everything.
I think he's a must play in single entry too. Coach asked us who are the must plays in single entry. So in terms of the popular guys, even though they're really chalky, Kelly Oubre, Kyle Filipkowski, I would absolutely play them in cash games as well as single entry GPPs, Eric.
They're absolute slams. Kyle Filipkowski, absolute slam. Just to, deviate a little bit because, this is the worst bit still going. I like Ivica Zubats for tournaments. You get Duran on the other side. Like, no Norman Powell, no Kawhi. Usage has to go around to somebody else. They only had to play 30 minutes yesterday because they got their asses kicked. I really like Zubats too. So he's probably going to be my tournament exotic play of the night. I'm considering him for single entry. Don't think he'll end up making that lineup, but I'll definitely be overweight to 13% in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the exotic, it's going to be Kyle Filipkowski. I see Go Fies in the chat asked who is the DEI play for NBA purposes. That is also Kyle Filipkowski. We can rebrand the exotic player of the night.
Yeah. How about the negate that your family actually exists play of the night? That's Kyle Filipkowski.
It's all Kyle Filipkowski. The answer to all the questions today, a lot of the bits, it's going to be Kyle Filipkowski. You also got Svi Makalu. You could build an entire exotic lineup of just Utah players today, and it's going to come out pretty well in the Sims. It's going to come out well in the single lineup simulator, which once again could be all in your hands for just $1 with that promo code welcome back if you sign up down below in the YouTube description box. Who else? Single entry. Who else is really important to you in a single entry GPP?
I think Denny Avdia is probably going to be in it as well. Again, I've got kind of like 3, 4, there's 4 players that I'm just playing in single entry. I'm playing Kelly Oubre, playing Kyle Filipkowski, I'm playing James Harden, and I'm playing Quentin Grimes. Those are the 4 that I'm playing right now in single entry. I don't think I'm sold on any, but Yabusele is in that single entry lineup too. So we got 5 of them.
Yep. I was going to say, I agree on Yabu for sure. Agree on him. I'm trying to find if there's like a really contrarian guy who I like for single entry
Nikola
today.
Jokic.
Because, we've got some this isn't an overly chalky slate. We've got Oubre and Filipkowski, super popular. Maxey and Sensabaugh, relatively popular. No other player right now on DraftKings, unless there's been an updated ownership projection, is more than 25% owned. And then over on FanDuel, if we look on FanDuel, let me see the most recent ownership over there. So for FanDuel ownership purposes, we've got 50% ownership to Filipkowski, Harden and Grimes, both north of 40% owned. Then you got north of 30% ownership to Sensabaugh, Hero, and Paul George. He's pretty popular over on FanDuel. Same deal. I would just align myself with the field on him on both sides. But then nothing else really chalk beyond there. As far as James Harden goes, not all that popular on DraftKings, very popular on FanDuel. I view him as a must play in cash over on FanDuel, $9,400. There's no Norman Powell. There's no Kawhi Leonard today for the Clippers. On DraftKings, where you have a little bit more of a price tag to James Harden, he isn't quite as popular. So once again, FanDuel, I'm going to consider him a must-play sort of guy in cash games. But over on DK, he's $9,700. The pricing is a little bit more sensitive over on DraftKings. I find James Harden to be a really interesting option at his current ownership and price tag. How are you handling James Harden on a slate where he's missing his 2 star teammates?
Love James Harden today. Talked about it earlier. I prefer him over Maxey. If you have the $700, obviously he's going to project more, and that's why he is more expensive. But James Harden, without both of them there, this is an awesome situation because unlike Tyrese Maxey, you're going to get rebounds that come along for the ride. You're going to get assists that definitely come along for the ride. So the floor is built in a little bit more there, less shooting dependent entirely, even though the usage goes up. Played yesterday, had a dynamic first half, and then things kind of fell apart there at the end of it. He did get bolstered by 5 stocks, which I don't find to be repetitive or something that he'll do again here. 68 fantasy points he ended up putting up, but you just go to his baseline, got him for 52 fantasy points. I think that James Harden is definitely a phenomenal option. I guess the one guy out of the spend ups, and this is kind of what I wanted to ask you, like, how much Jokic are you getting? Because this feels like a spot where we don't have a ton of value, but like, these are the spots where I actually want to play Jokic because I know that ownership isn't going to get out of control. Like, there's just no way that he's going to get to like 30, 35% owned like he is on almost every other slate because we don't have this dynamic value.
Yeah, let's see. So I'm pretty well overweight to the field on Jokic. And let's see, is he my... Yes. So if we're talking about the really expensive players, he's my most rostered one on the entire slate. And I'm talking about above 9K. So everybody priced above Tyrese Maxey. If we're including Maxey as a spend up, Maxey's my most rostered guy, but more expensive than that, Jokic for me, we've only got him projected for ownership in the teens. I'm 2x the field on Jokic. I really do like him as a, not really contrarian, but he's lesser owned than what I think he should be.
I agree with that. And that's the whole debate right now that I'm having as far as like, am I willing to forego one of Maxey, Harden in order to play Jokic today? I think I am in terms of like roster construction for it. But when you have I'm not going to call him a free square because that's foolish, but like barring crazy foul trouble, Kyle Filipowski is going to play a boatload of minutes. And that is just too good at his fantasy point per minute rate, kind of going through everything on the Utah side with what they're missing. I just feel like he has to play pretty well at 4,600. And then you can really only have the other roster spot. So you can play 2 centers over on DK. I don't know. I'm having a tough time deciding exactly what I want to do in single entry, but these are the kind of days where it's nice to be overweight to Jokic because somehow, some way, you're not gonna get to the flip of the early games and see 40% Jokic. It's just not a thing.
I agree. And so does our ownership, where we've got him for ownership in the teens as of right now. Super chat from, a couple super chats here. And let's get to these. First, Jeremiah Johnson said he's playing one lineup in the FanDuel $200. Who are the must plays? Okay. All right. So the players I'm going to consider must plays over on FanDuel. Now, keep in mind, some of these guys are going to be quite popular, but nonetheless, I consider them to be must play sort of guys. Filipowski, definitely going to be one for me over on FanDuel. James Harden, that's going to be another one for me over on FanDuel as well. Quentin Grimes, I'll add him to the mix. So the player who is the most different looking in terms of not grading out quite as well on FanDuel as DraftKings is Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre, I consider a must play on DraftKings, not at all on FanDuel. He's so much more expensive over on FanDuel. So must plays, I'm going to say Harden. I'm going to say Grimes. I'm going to say Filipowski. And must plays, I don't know if there's anybody else I would call a must play. There are other options I like. Like I think Isaiah Collier, really good lower owned option at 6K over on FanDuel. We got him projected for ownership in the teens. Svi Mykhailiuk, only 13% projected owned over on FanDuel. I think he's also a really good GPP option, but I wouldn't call him a must play. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of that question for FanDuel. Eric, I don't know if you've built out lineups for both sites, but anybody else that you consider a must play for FanDuel?
Yeah, I'm playing one lineup on FanDuel. That's kind of been my new thing, is like playing one in like all the single entry stuff over there. The one guy that I thought looked a little bit different, Bam Adebayo on FanDuel looked a lot better to me. That was somebody that you can play at power forward, which is very appealing. And relative to the DraftKings slate where, I like Zubats as a contrarian option. Jokic is not very popular. He does have power forward eligibility, but he's 8,300 over on DK. And I just find it much more difficult to click on FanDuel. You talk about like the swap, the salary allocation there, and 9 lineup spots, how the floor works with 3,500. I just think that Bam Adebayo is a pretty nice tournament option for that too. Somebody that I would consider in cash games. Him and Tyler Hero, who's only 8,400 over on FanDuel as well with shooting guard eligibility. Those 2 Miami pieces are very different site to site.
And the next question here is from Jason Oder. He wants to know, how about Nesmith or Svi Mykhailiuk for a low-owned single entry play? So, Jason, I'm not exactly sure which site it is that you're building lineups for, but Svi is not going to be low-owned today. Nope. So if you're looking for a low-owned option, he's low-owned on FanDuel, He's not low owned on DraftKings. We got him projected for, he's not like crazy popular on DraftKings, but he is projected for over 20% ownership. So we got him projected for 13% ownership on FanDuel, over 20% over on DraftKings. So he's certainly not contrarian. In the other one, he is mentioned is Neesmith. See, Neesmith's ownership. Neesmith is contrarian. So Svi, I don't like him as a contrarian option because he's not contrarian. As far as Neesmith goes, I don't like him just because I don't like him in general. So he's not somebody I'm getting exposure to on this slate. For yourself, Eric, Neesmith, Svi, I prefer Svi to Neesmith. Once again, not contrarian. Do you have anything to add to that? And maybe there's a different contrarian guy in that price range we could point him to.
DK or FanDuel? Which one?
He didn't say. I'm assuming DraftKings,
okay.
But I don't know for sure.
You know what? Hit the nuke in the night, Jordan Klein. Nuke in the night time.
All right.
It's time. We're ready. This is such a disturbing nuke of the night.
All right. Well, we know that Eric was going to go with Yabusele, but that's not going to be the case anymore. He got very.
Oh shit! Never mind. Nothing we're talking about matters anymore.
All right. Well, so Vooch was listed as probable, and now he was just ruled out of a left field.
What in the absolute fuckity duck? What are we doing here? Zach Collins free square. This is just absurd. Zach Collins free square. I almost played Zach Collins props today. Zach Collins is your best play of the slate. It's not remotely close. So 3,300 free square. Have fun.
All right. So has there been, when was the last time Vooch was out?
Forever. It doesn't matter. Zach Collins wasn't there.
Yeah, yeah.
This is so annoying. Oh.
Vooch has only missed one game this year, and it was December 13th. So it has been a meaningful amount of time since Vooch was out. What's your level of confidence that Zach Collins is the starter?
100%.
Okay. Well, that's quite confident.
100%. He's been the backup 5 for the last 2 weeks. So I stared at his props. I talked about it on my prop thread where Vooch has an issue. Like Vooch has an actual injury going on with him, and he's been playing through it for the last, I don't know how long. It's been pretty ridiculous. And we saw that he got downgraded. But again, and it's a downgrade when you go from not on the injury report to probable. But they've talked about this right calf, like amongst Chicago Bulls media and people I follow on X for a while. And it's funny because you watch the games and like, I don't always have the sound on or I'm on playback watching. And, you know, I'm usually listening to you and Josh as I should be when I'm making DFS lineups. But I've been surprised that they just don't rest Vooch considering they're 22 and whatever. They have a better record than Philly, which is hilarious. But your backup 5 has been Zach Collins. He played only 30 minutes, Vooch did last time. There was no foul trouble. He just is lingered by this calf. And you saw 18 minutes for Zach Collins as the direct backup. He is a good fantasy performer back, you know, wherever he's been, whether it was Portland, San Antonio, and now with Chicago. This is just such a slam dunk free square, and it came out somewhat late. I mean, I wish it came out later because this is 28 minutes. He is going to be the most popular play on the slate. He should be the most popular play on the slate. There is no way nobody else is going to start over him. It's going to be him at the 5. He is your starter tonight. He's the best play on the slate.
Assuming he starts, yeah. And I'm looking through there.
This changes everything though, because now you have a $3,300 piece and you have Filipowski. Now Jokic is going to be even lower owned in tournaments. I mean, this is going to get downright ridiculous where you can't even like use all your salary. Like I'm going to probably get to an irrational amount of these point guards now because of the positionality.
So the first thing that's, well, not the first thing, 2 things that are going to immediately happen to my lineups once everything gets updated. And we'll put the projections up on screen when we get the Chicago Bulls updated here. Filipowski was in a shit ton of my lineups. He's still going to be in a lot of those lineups, but he's just going to dip. We've got another player who is a big man who's cheaper, is going to project comparably. I'm going to have a lot of lineups with both of them, but I'm going to certainly lose some of my Filipkowski exposure here. In addition to that, which is echoing what you had said before, I have to assume guys like Tyrese Maxey and James Harden show up in way more lineups now because we've got all this center value. And like you said, where do we spend up for it? There isn't a Giannis on this slate. We do have SGA, although his fantasy output has not been great relative to some other pay up options, kind of a little bit scoring Bennett. So I didn't have very much of SGA. I'll get to a little bit more of him now. But the guys I assume really, really pick up in my lineups are going to be James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, and then if I have to pick a lower owned guy, Trae Young, who is going to be a little bit more popular now, but I was about 2x the field on him before. He's going to be the guy who's a little bit of a lower owned point guard option, who's going to show up in a lot more of my lineups. As far as shooting guard goes, we have Edwards as a pay up option, but I hate the matchup against OKC, tail end of a back-to-back as well. So where I think I really see more in my lineups, like I said, Harden.
Oh, hold up.
What happened?
Bogdanovich starting.
So what do we have?
Just insane.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Harden, Dunn, Bogdanovich, Batum, and Zubac. So Amir Coffey not starting today. We've got Bogdanovich starting instead. What is Bogdanovich's price point? Whenever you say that there isn't that much more news that we have to wait, it never works out that way, does it?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Collins is starting. He's the best value play on the slate.
Giddy. But for all the questions about must plays and cash single entry, add Zach Collins to that mix.
Everything we talked about 30 minutes ago is irrelevant.
Giddy, White, Ball, Buzelis, and Collins. That is the starting five for, I was going to say your Chicago Bulls, because that's just like something people say, but they're nobody's Chicago Bulls. Nobody likes this team.
Well,
so
not anymore.
That's a starting lineup we have there. We got the Wizards.
Michael Jordan
lineup.
Could start for this team now.
Sorry, what was that?
Michael Jordan could start for this team now, like today.
He probably could. Certainly would be a more interesting game. And then for the Wizards, Sarr is out again. So Holmes sticking in the starting lineup there. We got the Bulls starting lineup. Outside of Collins, who else is benefiting from the Bulls? Because Vooch is a fairly high usage guy. Zach Collins is a lesser usage guy. Who are the other players that are going to benefit in the Bulls starting lineup?
Everybody with a pulse. Josh Giddey, just put him into the conversation with all these other point guards that we have today to cycle through. I doubt I have to go there just because we now have so much value between Collins, Filipkowski. I think it's going to be the Jokic lineups where I probably end up going to Giddey as opposed to one of Maxey, or I do like Tyler Hero for tournaments. I think on FanDuel is really where you want to get that exposure today. Maxey, Halliburton's 8K. It is a back-to-back, but only 30 minutes yesterday. It was a blowout, and there's no TJ McConnell, so maybe they just up his minutes a tiny bit. I think there are so many good point guard slate. And we didn't even talk about Cade Cunningham as an eternal spend-up. SGA on a back-to-back, even though there's obvious blowout concerns there. I mean, just point guard is so loaded. And now you get Bogdanovich at shooting guard. We have Grimes at shooting guard. We have Oubre at shooting guard, small forward. We have so many things. I got to think for the Bulls, it's basically just Collins is like the jam. Buzelis at 4,800 is interesting. And there's obviously more usage to go around, but there's nothing that looks remotely the same as what Collins does. So I don't want to act like there is. Like THT is actually in play at flat 3K. There's no Patrick Williams, no Ayo Dosunmu. I think THT is probably your way off the board tournament play. I think Dalen Terry could play some backup 5 if need be. They don't want to play EJ Liddell, although he played 17 minutes. What was that? Back in November as a backup 5 with no Vooch. So, I'm just kind of working through Chicago. He's with the G League anyway, so he can't play. It's going to have to be Dalen Terry as your backup 5. So that alone is kind of intriguing.
And did you see how, because Jalen Smith is out, that's something that's really relevant now.
Correct.
To this as well. Did you see the play Jalen Smith got hurt on?
No.
He flopped and then hit his head on the ground. So he was doing that thing where he was trying to over exaggerate contact. and just like went flying backwards and just slammed his head and face on the
ground. It's like Magikarp in a Pokemon game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just Magikarp, wham.
Yeah, just flopping around, slams on the ground, and he appeared to be pretty concussed, where he was struggling to walk getting off the court, and it was all self-imposed. So almost nothing happened. I can't remember who it was that made contact with him, but yeah, he just flopped and injured himself.
Unreal. He knows that like they have review now, right?
He does. Don't have to do and that. I think they still called, I can't remember if they called it an offensive foul or not.
Dude, I can't believe this slate. Just when you think it's going to be nice, calm, and mild. I'm just so mad that I didn't bet Collins props today because I almost did. I almost did. Just couldn't do it. Couldn't justify it.
One other thing I'm thinking about. There's a guy that you liked. I don't even remember how long ago it was that we did this show where you liked him. And I think you had him as a nuke play for yourself. Which, by the way, we still have to circle back on because we ran the animation for the nuke of the night.
Oh my God.
Then just as you were about to start talking, Vooch gets ruled out and everything goes to shit. So we're going to have to circle back on that. Kevin Huerter, somebody else as well, who you just, there aren't that many bodies for this Bulls team. I think Kevin Huerter is a little bit more appealing to me than THT just because THT hasn't really been in the rotation. Huerter has been. But he's somebody else with the Bulls potentially playing smaller lineups today, which I think they're going to kind of have to do. I think Huerter stands to play extra as well.
Yeah, but when you're right about THT at a flat 3K with multi-positional eligibility, you get paid off. I don't know if you get paid off 3,600 Kevin Huerter in any other way than he just goes out and makes 7 threes. Like that's the only way that I think Kevin Huerter really works out for you here. And that's kind of what I'm worried about. Like, I think THT can at least play the 3 or the 4 if need be, especially if it's Paul George out there. I don't think you get away with doing that in any other capacity. Like, it's so weird. Like the main thing is no Io, no Patrick Williams, no Jalen Smith, no Vooch. Like those are 4 normal rotation pieces. And I think next guy up, not Javon Carter. Trey Jones has been in the rotation. I don't think Julian Phillips plays a ton. I think it's Dalen Terry at flat 3K. I think he's probably the next guy up for me. And like, there's just THT because of the fantasy point per minute rate. I think I would rather take shots on him than Huerter, but you know, obviously we have better value than what we had on that slate where I talked about Kevin Huerter at length. It was like a 3 or 4 game slate. There was very, very bad value on it, and I was way over. I think THT is still going to be my preferred route if I'm trying to win a tournament.
Huerter played over 30 minutes last game.
Jeez,
and he's $3,600.
Absurd.
At a certain point, that playing time is going. We had Huerter projected relatively decently before this. We had him projected for over 20 fantasy points before the Vooch news at 3,600.
Great point. This is why we talk through things and I don't just go on tangents by myself. Oh, wait, I did. My bad.
Yeah, you'll do that anyway. There's no putting the, by the way, projections just updated 58 seconds.
Sick
Jordan,
moves.
Throw this on screen. I don't know what the hell to expect from some of these ancillary pieces from the Bulls. Let's give it a look.
We gave Taylor Horton Tucker 0 minutes. So there we go. Cool. He's got projected for like 8. We do have Kevin Huerter projected as the much better value. So congratulations. You win a prize.
Here's what we got. So we have here, but almost this entire team other than THT projects well. So we've got for the Chicago Bulls, Josh Giddey now projected for 42 fantasy points. We've got Kobe White projected for about 35 fantasy points at $6,700. Massively disappointing season for Kobe White, who seemed to take step forwards last year and it's kind of regressed this year. Hasn't really shown all that much of a ceiling. So I'd rather pay up using it, kind of loosely. But as far as the more expensive Bulls go, I'd rather be getting to Josh Giddey than Kobe White. Zach Collins, no surprise, by a mile, best value play on the slate. We've got him projected for nearly 30 fantasy points at close to a min price. Lonzo, 28.15 fantasy points at 5K. We got Buzelis for 27.54. I wish he was small forward and power forward as opposed to just power forward. Kevin Huerter also looking good, 23.6 fantasy points at $3,600. By the way, like I said before, he played over 30 minutes last game. We've got him for 26 minutes today, like pretty conservative on the minute side, and he still projects well on a points per dollar basis. And then Julian Phillips, the guy we've projected best amongst the rest there, 17.93 fantasy points at $3,400. Now, I might be digging a little bit deep. Maybe he shows up in a lineup or two, but primarily, I think my exposure to the Bulls is going to be number 1, Zach Collins, a number 2, Josh Giddey, And then it's going to be like Alonzo Ball, Buzelis, Herter. There's your next group of players that are going to kind of be grouped together. How about you? Now that we've got projections updated from the Bulls and you're looking that over, what stands out to you?
So my thing is like, we have Julian Phillips basically playing backup 5, right? Like that's kind of the stance that we've got with it. Because I think they're going to have like a direct backup and keep Julian Phillips playing the 4 in his rotation pieces. He got in foul trouble last game. Again, I just want to work through this because I think there's definitely more to mine out from the Bulls than just who projects well. Like, whether it's THT or Julian Phillips or Dalen Terry, one of those 3 is going to be very viable in addition to everybody that you just listed off. It's just figuring out who the backup 5 is because, like, Collins is the best play. Brought that up before, but he hasn't played more than 18 minutes since November 21st, back with the Spurs, obviously. But I'm just curious if they go like 26, 22, 28, 20. Like, there's going to be something else to mine out at a flat 3K or a 3,400 Julian Phillips. So I just kind of want to get an idea of what we've got for the backup 5 minutes.
Yeah, I like, even looking at our projections, it's still kind of hard to say. Like, it does seem to be Julian Phillips is the guy that we're giving center minutes to. We've got him in for 25 minutes. We've our 24 and a half minutes. We've got Zach Collins in for 26. Has Dalen Terry played center minutes at all this year?
Remember 2 years ago, he was the guy who started at the 5 and we were like, what the fuck? Like, do you remember that? It was 2 years ago when Dalen Terry out of the middle of nowhere was playing the 5.
Was that Dalen Terry that we're thinking of, or was that the short guy from the Pacers?
Gotta find out.
Let me see. Has he played center minutes this year? Who was the short guy from the Pacers who is really relevant for DFS for like 10 days? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Rinpack, you got to be watching, Terry Taylor, Richie, Rich Green.
That's why I thought
that's why he's doing projections.
Just because they both have Terry in their name. I thought maybe there was a mix up there.
Dude, this is so wild.
Yeah, he's never played a center minute in his entire career.
Okay,
Dalen
well,
Terry.
He might have to today. Get ready to learn Chinese, buddy. Like, it's one of those where, I mean, we gotta find something else. They don't have Liddell with the team. He's in the G League. So who's playing backup 5? Is Buzelis playing backup 5?
I don't know. I don't think you have to play one of these So just I don't agree with it in terms of how you framed it. I don't think you have to play one of these backup guys off the bench for the Bulls. There's enough value on the slate. If you just have exposure to like Zach Collins and, some of the other value plays on the slate, I don't think it's necessary to have exposure to bench guys from the Bulls.
Somebody said nuke in super chats. How about Zach Collins nuke? How you feel better? You feel better now that you've asked? That's good. It's good. Dalen Terry is skinny and 6'6". Same thing we said about Terry Taylor, and he went out and smashed his chalk as a 6'6" center. So yes, these are things that we are thinking about. Thank you, Jordan Klein. Everybody needed to see that picture again, obviously. Thank you. There we go.
Let's start answering some of these questions that came in. And listen, we got thrown off here. We got thrown off. There was unexpected. A guy who's probable, who matters a lot, was ruled out, and they only have one center on their roster right now. Okay, so let's start answering some of your questions. Let's see what's sitting here waiting for us. We've got here. Oh, there's only a couple of them. Rob Live wants to know, is there something wrong with the tools? For some reason, negative lineups win in tournaments. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing as, think of it this way. There are players who are projected to do well that have bad games sometimes. Sometimes there are players who are projected to do poorly that have good games. So let's say, for instance, you're playing an NFL showdown contest. Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, and whoever's the backup quarterback, was it Carson Wentz this year for the Chiefs? Yep. Whatever, doesn't matter. Carson Wentz ends up coming in, ends up playing well. He's in the winning lineup. That lineup is still going to have a negative sim ROI. And I'm using a really extreme example just because it's kind of easier to paint a picture that way. Sometimes things that are expected to go poorly go well. Sometimes things that are expected to go well go poorly. It doesn't mean that bad lineups were expected to be good even though they ended up winning. It's just there's a lot of variance in DFS. Things happen sometimes. So yeah, that is going to happen. Lineups that are not expected to do well, players who are not expected to do well are occasionally going to have good games. It's part of what goes on. So yeah, totally normal there. Fantasy Guru 76 wants to know on FanDuel, low owned sleeper point guard Isaiah Collier for me.
I like the Isaiah Collier shout out. I will say Keontae George has been sneaky chalk on like every slate he's been on for the last however long. So I won't throw him in there. I'm with you. I think Collier, he just kind of does everything on the floor. 40% assist rate when you take all of those goobers, all 5 of them off the floor this season. Now, I do think the efficiency comes down. I probably don't want to bet him at 8 or 8.5 or 9.5 assists, but like, he's got so much double equity. It's like 160 around the industry right now. You get a boost for that. You get extra on top of it. So like, that's a pretty short price for a guy that's as cheap as what he is for a double.
Yeah. I mean, he's and also these games for the Jazz, there's a bunch of guys out today. These games don't really mean anything. You would think they want to give him extra looks. People have been asking me about betting him for a rookie of the year because he's like 40-1. The big concern I have is what happens when Colin Sexton comes back in a couple of weeks. Collier wasn't playing a ton earlier in the season. Does he lose out on minutes down the stretch of the season too? But at least for today, while the team is shorthanded, yeah, I like him as a contrarian option at point guard. Eric Goodwin wants to know top 5 DK cash plays. All right, Eric, top 5 DK cash plays. Well, it's going to be different than the last time we talked about this because Zach Collins is certainly one of them now. Let's see, top 5 for cash though.
My Jokic exposure went up, which is just hilarity.
All right, so let's go Giddey.
Yep.
Let's say Zach Collins.
Yep.
Maxey.
Yep.
Still going to say Oubre.
Yep.
And I'll still say Filipowski as well.
I think Filipowski can go away. I'm looking at my top lineup. Collins and Jokic are my center combination in it. That's going to be my center combination in single entry as well.
Filipowski is going to be like 75% owned.
I know.
Cash,
it's
though.
really, really hard, but
The cash
I mean, it's disgusting. Yeah, cash. You're probably going Collins, Filipowski. Yes.
Which that's the question. So yeah, I'm still going to say Filipowski there. Darren Unger, FanDuel cash. We've got a 2v2 from him. Jokic and Dunn or Zubats and Maxey.
I'm not on Dunn at mid 4K on this slate. I'm really not.
I don't like either of those combinations.
Yeah, I don't either.
I guess I'll say Zubats but I don't think you should be going with Zubats. I'll say Zubats and Maxey, but it's really neither.
Yeah, Zubats Maxey, but yeah, Zubats looked enticing until we got another $3,300 center that you just have to play in every lineup. So there's that.
Avi Schreier wants to know, is Jordan Poole okay for FanDuel today, Eric? Do you like Jordan Poole at all for tournaments?
Not really. No.
Let me look at Jordan Poole.
I do not.
Jordan Poole. No, I have him in at $7,600 on FanDuel. I have him in one of my top 150 lineups. Not okay for me. I'd look elsewhere, Abby. I would look elsewhere.
Agreed.
All right, let's look at what we got sitting for us in Discord now. Mike Will wants to know which Utah player is a safe pick for single entry on FanDuel. I'm going to say Philip. So also keep in mind that Filipowski over on FanDuel, power forward and center eligible. So I'm going to say him as the answer because you could pretty easily go with him there in the power forward spot. So yeah, easy answer there. Zach Attack wants to know, where does Killian Hayes fit in the value conversation?
Non-existent. He has a 15.5 PRA prop. No, 0%.
Yeah. No, other than like being a last man in sort of thing, there's many better options to go to for value. That is a no for me. Krebsy wants to know, Denny or Porter Jr. for today?
Denny or Porter Jr.? Now it's definitely got to be Denny for me.
I will say Denny as well. Einstein, he wants to know thoughts on Okongwu for tonight. Too many good center options.
Yeah,
Too many good center options.
He would have been in the conversation of like potential nukes. Not on this slate. He's not.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just thinking through it's not only does he need to have a ceiling game, you would need like Zach Collins to not have a great game at $3,300, or like Jokic not have a big. It's too much competition. Too much competition. Coach DFS, does this change our top single entry plays with Vucevic? Yeah, absolutely, because all the Bulls guys start to look viable now. Like Josh Giddey is somebody who I would say very, very strong option for single. Zach Collins, I say must play for single entry now that he's starting. So yeah, absolutely changes the equation. Yep. We've got it's Jay. Is Zach Collins a lock button? Will you be playing 100% of Zach Collins, Eric?
Yes, I will.
I am updating my lineups right now. I am not going to guarantee I have 100% of him. I will guarantee he's going to be my most rostered player on the slate, though.
Good guarantee.
I might have 100%. I'll let you guys know shortly here. We've got the next question here from M. Grizzly. M. Grizzly wants to know, can we talk about exposure to Collins, Filipkowski, Jokic? 3 of the top 4 projected players are centers, and trying to decide how to play it. All right, so for me, there's a very clear pecking order. For me, number 1 is Collins, not even close. Number 2, it's Filipkowski, and number 3 is Jokic for me.
Those all sound exactly like mine.
Drizzy wants to know, how much salary am I comfortable leaving on the table today? You shouldn't be leaving lineups like $800 in salary on the table. I'll let you know in a second here when I have my lineups updated of my top lineups, how much salary the top ones are leaving on the table. But if you're building 1 lineup, 2, 3 lineups, something you're doing for single entry or whatever, like they really shouldn't be leaving more than a couple $100 or so on the table for NBA DFS. But
correct.
I'm sure across 150 lineups, I might have lineups to leave $400 or $500 in salary on the table. But I'm not looking to make lineups that are like $4,800 or anything like that.
Nor am I.
All right. Time to kick off my final sim run here. This should be the last one. Well, it kind of has to be the last one because we're running out of time.
Yeah, this is getting absurd.
Let's see. Gator Nation. Gator Nation wants to know, do we like Sabonis and LaMelo Ball for FanDuel? Do you like Sabonis and LaMelo Ball, Eric? There's a lot of good big men on the slate. Sabonis is not going to be.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Don't think I can. More so on FanDuel.
Correct. I think LaMelo more so on FanDuel.
Sabonis, not really. Not really. Nope. Too many other big men I prefer.
Agreed.
Bunny 2705. Contrarian payups for FanDuel. All right, so we've talked about some of the more popular spend ups here, Eric. Are there any contrarian spend ups for the slate you have your eye on?
Trae Young.
Yep.
Trae Young is not getting any attention, and I just did a final sim run, and he appears to be kind of the forgotten guy that's coming up now for me. I think SGA as well. When you talk about how much value we just got, there are ways to be able to make SGA work in lineups that I just didn't think I was going to remotely have access to. I know it's a back-to-back, but we're talking about a guy with a 44.5 PRA prop out there. And again, if we just assume that the market is somewhat correct there, that is a gigantic number for a guy who's pulling absolutely no ownership whatsoever. So he gets Minnesota on a back-to-back. I mean, it's just such a weird thing to have Mike Conley playing on this back-to-back. Ant playing on this back-to-back. Jalen Clark is in somehow, even though I thought he was concussed yesterday. But we could see some like really limited minutes. This could end up being just an evisceration. But if it is, SGA is probably a big part of it. You get Chet off the floor. I think SGA is probably the other guy that I'm actually considering for single entry, because if I go with this Kevin Huerter lineup instead of this Grimes lineup, I have the money for it. So I'm gonna test it one more second here. I got 1 minute.
All right, so I've got my lineups uploaded. Just finished that final sim run, and I do have I've got 100% here of Zach Collins.
Yep.
So I can commit to saying I have 100%.
Who's your second most popular player?
Oubre.
Yabusele's still for me, and then Buzelis is 3. Oubre is 4.
Contrarian spend up. All right, let's sort by salary. All right, contrarian spend up. Trae Young is one of them for me. Tyler Hero's another one. Tyler Hero. Tyrese Halliburton. It's all guards, which is not surprising considering where the value is. Jokic, I was not really able to get to a ton of Jokic because of my Filipkowski as well as my Zach. Like I have 100% of Zach Collins. I just lose out on a center spot as a result of that. So Jokic, lost some of him in this mix here. So yeah, contrarian guards once again: Tyrese Halliburton, Tyler Hero, and Trae Young from the all projected for sub 20% ownership. And all right, some super chats came in here, so let's fire through these really quick. Pierre, pick one for FanDuel. Dunn, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Davion Mitchell, Hayes, or Sensabaugh. That is Sensabaugh for me. John C. Billups, Kamara or Grimes for DK. That is Grimes for me pretty easily. And then Daniel Buffington, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Jokic or Gideon Harden. Gideon Harden.
Yep.
And Discord, are you good on your lineups, by the way?
I'm all done. Got it done. I'm playing SGA in single entry. What a time to be alive.
Okay. One final question here from Zach Attack. One more for FanDuel. Pick two of Hero, Gideon Harden. That is going to be Gideon Harden for me.
Yep, same.
All right, Eric, we have only got like a minute left to go here. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget, $1. It's not for any NBA package you want on the site, just $1. Link down below in the YouTube description box. Promo code is welcome back. If you want to check out our portfolio EV tools, free. You get a free trial, 7-day free trial if you guys want to try those out. It is the easiest way to simplify your betting process. You don't have to have any of your own thoughts or analysis. You can use the mass entry tool. You could just bet exactly what's on screen, and that is going to be expected to be profitable over time here. Josh and I are going to be going over into playback here in just a second. So if you could do us a favor, Jordan, drop that link into the chat. If you guys haven't liked the video, subscribe to the channel. Any final thoughts for the people, Eric?
No, I mean, obviously this Bulls stuff was wild. Really fun to work through with you, Greg. Best of luck to everybody. Hopefully we hit all the ping pong balls right, but I'm an SGA fan, and I feel like I didn't say his name the entire show until just now. So hit the like button, head to playback. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. See you guys over in playback. I'm interested to see what Josh did with the Bulls news. Peace out.